Sangye
I go
Chödong
for
Soje
refuge until
Chonam
enlightenment
La
to the Buddha,
Chanjo
the
Pado
teaching, and the
Dane
spiritual
Gyabsoch
community. By the
Dage
merit of
Chöshe
the
Kibe
teachings, may
Sonam
I achieve
Di
Buddhahood
Dola
in order to
Penjire
help all
Sangye
living
Druba
beings.
Raisho
I go for
Sangye
refuge
Chödong
until
Soje
enlightenment to the
Chonam
Buddha,
La
the teaching,
Chanjo
and the
Pado
spiritual
Dane
community.
Gyabsoch
By the merit of
Dage
the
Chöshe
teachings,
Kibe
may I
Sonam
achieve
Di
Buddhahood in
Dola
order to
Penjire
help all
Sangye
living
Druba
beings.
Raisho
I go for
Sangye
refuge
Chödong
until
Soje
enlightenment to the
Chonam
Buddha,
La
the teaching,
Chanjo
and the
Pado
spiritual
Dane
community.
Gyabsoch
By the merit of
Dage
the
Chöshe
teachings,
Kibe
may I
Sonam
achieve
Di
Buddhahood in order
Dola
to help
Penjire
all
Sangye
living beings.
Druba Raisho Yeah.
So today we have two questions. I just have to set my recorder. The first question here has to do, well, since conceptual consciousnesses and yogic direct perceivers are categorically distinct, how can the veil be lifted to go from an inferential realization to a direct non-conceptual realization of emptiness? Because J-Pak Seman Wunsum Seman because Dope Sheba down Wunsum Nelju Wunsum Semagi Beit Kakan Keba Yode at Sem Logan Ni Yode and then Ganjes J-Pak Seman Wunsum Sema because Doni la Wunsum de J-Pat Sema Gone Dopa Dang Dopa Ne Wunsum Sema Barde Gir Tugide.
Oh yeah. This is no. Cheba Sama Tombani to Cheba Samate, and Nusum Sama condition your to with us. Mode. Go down with Cheba Sama said, Tada to send the ten. Kasmazumaba loves her. Tada to send the ten, and Rangwin Meba, Tarangwin Meba. Do Yora. Oh, they told it, Yane and the come. To send some Lota. Yanda Rangwin me some. Yang Gyusen Samlu Ta Rangwin me some come. Oh, Tende come to Teni Paruchil. Gyusen Samlu Ta Megweba. Ta Rangwin Yume Chukanga Rangwin Yume Samlu Ta Nangi Koyungur, Samlu Nangi Koyungura. Komju Nangi. Koran. Ta de Gyusen Samlu Ta Megwebache. Samlu Ya Koyungur, Paruchimang Bokom Sadu. Take on Balatene, Ser and Dugre. Ser, Peruchil telling us Milam Tone, she sabo, Dame Bangusum to Loying on Jundu Yora. Chibasama Corante, Yacom Concer, Donene, Tombanusum to Toba Loying Opa Jundu Yora.
Because Milam?
Die Milam Yushana Dugre. Milam Nangazu, you sabo Tongutua. Oh, didn't I see Chego Ser Chine? Tombanusum to Sabo Tongre. Oh, Tenet some Jurva, Cheba, the some Jurgorva. Oh, yeah. Tambutta, the Jusen Samlota, Rangune Madubare, some Jogum Chavore. Telechegum Sigura, Chebache, Rangune Madubare, some Loshagura. Oh, the Dagbar is Samlotan, the Perugil, Jusen Samlomadana. Any Tala Samlotana, Tarangune Mebare, some. Nangi Samlo Koyungura. Oh, the Yane and the Gon Ser Drone. The Parucher Narazu Milam Tona Shigi, Pesebo, Tongire. Oh, they do no Musum Gamo Jura. Look around the King, Jurgin, Musum Gamo Jodura. Madolo Tambun and Need in the ocean, did the Omara.
When you understand emptiness by way of a inferential cognition, inferential valid cognition, then you're relying on reason, like we explained before, that you're applying reasons repeatedly. When you apply the reasons, then that's when you're thinking over the reasons for the self lacking intrinsic existence, then that time it's analytical meditation. Then when you reach the conclusion, oh, the self lacks existence from its own side intrinsically, then then you do stabilizing meditation on that conclusion. So you repeat this over and over. This is you become very familiar with this procedure. That's meditation. Then gradually, over the course of doing that, you won't need to rely on the reasons. That just by thinking selflessness, then thinking about the self, the what do you say, that the selflessness just appears, what do you say, without having to depend upon reason. So then you continue meditating on that, and that becomes clearer and clearer and clearer until it's said to be like in a dream. The objects in a dream are very clear, right? So then at that point, it's like the clarity of objects in a dream. You clearly see emptiness, and you're seeing it directly. It's although the conceptual consciousness and yogic direct procedures are categorically distinct, it doesn't mean that one can't change into the other. That's not the, what do you say, categorically, what's the word I've been using? Categorically, they're not completely separate, that one can change into the other.
And Telia Rangwin Tribanga some Sunday. Naranzunam Uninga Naranga some Dinge Sobur, Dinge Sembrism, Nangaranga some Samgiora. Oh, Tisambanashi, Yomare Samgura, Karina Samla, Ene Pumbuda, Pumbunga Deda, Sudi Narangwin Truba, Semde Narangwin Truba, Swanga Rangwin Truba, Chictua Yomare, Pumbunga Reda, Chictua Yomare. Pumbunga Reda, Wumba Sebunashi, Loso Yomare. Oh, do you do that? Pumbudelia, Na Samazunga, some Gilda, Narangwin Truba to the Yomare, Samgura. Garesana, Yona Yana, Pumbunga Mato Yomarangana, Ding Iangur and Dear Rangwin Truba and Dear Denamari, Chick to Yomare. Oh, comes a Pashania, Loga, Narawamachi, Loso Yomare. Oh, do you do that? Narangwin Mendu, some Semlia, Yamber Shagura, Jacum Jecha, or Narangwin Metachudesa. Semlage, the government, Yumbu Shagura. Oh, Tindiane, Yandu some of the Tawari, some Tagiora. Tawari, some thousand Perugil, to send some Lutankumare, Chick to Yomare, Tade to Yomare, Masam Naya, and Narangwin Yomare, some Longangi Yungre. Kumjun Sigur, the Kumjun. 양내양도 검네다 따로 때문에 봐 롱한게 주는 거라 어디 다바르네 검검검검 안에 세르세르도라 근데 바로 지금 무슨 또 통남게 뭐 줄 거라 뭐래
To explain that in more detail, you're meditating on how you're taking the aggregates as the subject of your, what do you say, syllogism. And when you apply reason, in the aggregates, the self is not going to be anywhere else than the aggregates. So then you're taking the aggregates and saying that they lack an inherently existent self because of being neither one nor many, and so then you start with the idea that they're self-identical, and so if you go through each of the 5 aggregates, the what form is not the self, feelings are not the self, discrimination is not the self, compositional factors are not the self, consciousness is not the self. Then you go over to contemplating that they're diverse, and so that it's categorically different from, that the self is categorically different from the aggregates. So then when you can't find a self that exists completely on its own, separate from the 5 aggregates, then you understand that the aggregates lack an inherent. You understand this lack of an inherently existent self, and then you focus on that with stabilizing meditation, and through that process, then gradually you'll come to a point where this lack of the aggregates lacking an inherently existent self, just all you have to do is turn your mind to that, and it appears to your mind without having to depend upon the reason. And then through meditating on that, it gradually gets clearer. The idea is that it automatically comes without, the word is automatically comes up without having to depend upon the reason. Then you gradually become more familiar with that, and that is what transforms into that experience transforms into this direct experience of the lack of inherent existence, or the emptiness of inherent existence.
That ne kasura ta de rwa so le de rangwe ta ma res no le de rangwe ta yin any sem de rangwe ta yin chwa rangwe ta yin ta mang bu ren du ra ta mang bu ren du ra so bu da yin ani go da yin la ba da yin international sem ta yin chwa da yin du shi da yin ta mang bu ren du re kansa chil ta mang bu ren du re ti yong tu ma re sam bu re tene 다 풍부가부터 배카가 있나 아니 소보 나서나 다 나고 말해 소보 나서 당수나 다 나서 당고 말해 라반 딜 나서 당수나 딜 나서 당고 뭐 하고니 가가라와 딜 나서 당는 딜 나서 당고 말해 소보 배 로가레 다배 뭐 타데 로가 유나 뭐 세번 나시 유나 소보 나서나 다 나고 말해 소보 강바 잠도스나 다안도고 말해 류기 자와 제바도 다게 자와 제발은 좀 말해 Mo Tadina. Tata Palana Shirin Dore. Oh, Labaye in Shire, Labaye Chawach and the Yumbe Chawach and Rumarwa. Mo Tadina. Oh, down I shitine. Soadan, Dushi, Sambakibuyana, Anga Kibutu, Onga Kibu Metiri, Dunghe, said with the Shato Mare. Luda, Semda, Soadan, Samlutan had to Lega Chabati, Daga Lega Chaba Chawach and Rumare. Oh, Tinetine, Luna, Dana said, Shy to marry. Lundrona, Tando, Shy Megatagra. Oh, didn't you die around with Ashiona? Pumbudan. Pumbunga with that chick chen, you're not among wood and wood. Oh, Bay Kagacha, you have in it. Pumbunga with the Chawachavati, Daga Chawachav and Rumare. Oh, yeah. What in the Samutani? Chick do me do Tadedo, me do Samgura. What didn't do that? Ranguni me do some Pumbulia, now some Narawadi me do some Tasha, dig on the same jogore. Young and young to choose some down for touching one ratio some Yeshe Negure. So touching, oh, Tindu Sungi Yore, Imba Imbinjiri, some Diomare. Oh, one at the red or some so never Negura. What in the young boy, young and young to combine, Baruchili choosing some down Megova. Chigre Taderi in the some Dangumare. Tarangune Yome some dancing, oh, Tadi, Rangune me some Lolangangi Kong. What did that what is come going to the Sir Dora? And then we some secretary. Yeah, that degree.
The way you would apply the reason is that you would think that you would contemplate how the self, well, let's say that the aggregates lack an inherently existent self because of being not being self-identical. And if they're self-identical, then it has problems. That if you decide that the body is the self, then the feelings and discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness also each have to be the self, and so you'd have many selves, and so that won't work. So then if you switch over to the idea that the self and the aggregates are categorically different, then you in the sense that each one exists as its own entity, then they're totally unrelated, and so that if you have the feeling that if your what do you say, body is sick, then you wouldn't say I'm sick. You wouldn't be sick because it'd be categorically different. And if you're it'd be like your right arm not being your left arm. It's just like if you had a thought, it wouldn't be I am thinking. You couldn't say I have this thought. You couldn't because the thinking or the mind and the body would be totally different from the self. So you could never, like, if the body, what did it say? If your body was walking down this, and this is a little hard. If your body is walking down the street, then you couldn't say I'm walking down the street. It would be like, because they're categorically different. So then, when you think in these ways, then you reach the conclusion, that self lacks an inherently existent person, and then you focus on that conclusion, and over time of meditating in that way, then you automatically think that the self lacks, or the aggregates lack an inherently existent self. It'll just come to your mind. So then, just automatically, and then you start meditating on that, and that's what gradually then gets clearer and clearer and clearer. In the beginning, it's called, when you have it based on, when you first understand that the self, that the aggregates lack an inherently existent self, that's called Geshe, which means certain knowledge. You're very certain, but you get more and more certain, and then automatically, when you don't have to rely on what do you say, the reason anymore, then that gets clearer and clearer and clearer, and then that's what transforms into a direct experience of emptiness. Then the second question. Oh, I don't know if I should have to read this in English. I was trying to avoid that, but on August 22nd, you taught that through reflecting on the principles of impermanence and suffering, then we come to understand selflessness and emptiness. Would you kindly say more about this? I can appreciate that deepening one's understanding of impermanence can assist one in understanding selflessness and emptiness, but I am unclear right now about how deepening one's understanding of suffering grows one's understanding of emptiness. The Kasam de Gana de Mitakpa Tang Damela Kasam Mitakpa Tang Dunga Gomne Dene de Dagme Tang Tombani la Doya la Pengire de Mitakpa Gomna Dene de Pengire de Semla Babke de Yin Kanta is the Dungel Gomne Kazak Tombani Tang Dame Bala Pengide.
Mane ode. Dungyawa sigura. Dungyawa til kasinga shemba. Tada pena pumbunga budege. Dungheji tenchi grese. Kemangbu dungemangbu ge shichi gre. Dungemangbu yongchu grese ra. Oh, tene she. Ene ta pumbunga bude. Ngi nyamu ta leda nyamu be shangwa jeres. Mi luda, mi semda, mi chora, mi ndushi di kasebadu degre. Di susul rawa ke yomara. Ngi leda nyamu bage shangwa du kyurne tandanga zu mi sobuda mi semda mi chora dege ora. Susul rawa yomara chi mi sobuda mebre ne leda nyamu di nebatu sosuna tene meg chagra. Shindura. Oh, di indiko leda nyamu be shangwa jara pumbunga gade. Pumbunga gade gyudan kyenle tene kechi gyurde ora. Pumbunga gade leda nyamu be shangwa jara. Oh, tile ya rawa ya taji kande sungure sigare. Leda nyamu be shangwa jengi tunga ware. Oh, tene tam midaba shemoja. Leda nyamu be shangwa jengi tunga wara. Oh, ti indone pumbunga le ya nawada sawada karichosune dale yongudwa dunge nyongudwa ne rawe dachu ne pumbu nana da na koye yo mare rawe dachu ne nga leda nyomu be shangwa jenge pumbu dango chikba she de koye yo mare diswa tenda midagba indu gyuda gyuwange ko rawa mebando denge samlu ko yora le nyomu be shangwa chesude leda nyomu be ngaze sobude 가제버도 대그래 셈미 소아 가제 대그래 미chen 가제 대그래 그 디왕 도 대겨라 디디 라와에 다시 용해요 말에 섬겨라 그래서
when we talked about suffering, we so the basis was our aggregates. So then these aggregates, we have to think, as they are the basis for something, they're ready to give rise to suffering. And but they, when you think about the aggregates, they're dependent upon something else. That they're dependent upon the our form of karma and our afflictive emotions. They're completely dependent in the sense they're completely under the power, I guess you have to say, of our form of karma and our afflictive emotions. When we have human feelings, human discriminations, human thoughts, and so forth, that's all as a result of our karma and our afflictive emotions. So we don't have any independence from those, and so how could there be some kind of independent self that we're totally under that? We're under the power of our form of karma and our afflictions. It's very similar to the idea that with impermanence, the aggregates are constantly changing because they're under the power of causes and conditions. These in the same way, and so then how can you think of a independent self? There's no such thing as an independent self. It's under the power of causes and conditions. It's under the power, and therefore it's constantly changing. It's under the power of form of karma and affliction. So we're constantly subject to sickness and aging and death, and like we're always wondering, are these aggregates going to end? When are they going to end? It's because we have no power to stay ourselves. We're totally under the power of our former karma and afflictions. Mm.
This one. What? Tiende ko pungbunga ladanyam ka pungbunga de keji kin jurandu na she. Da de keji kin jurandu yora. Judan kengi hong ko jurandu yora. Oh, tene pungbu tungye gi dang shin chen ban she da de ge tungye nyong yora. Sokul chinri ma so tungye nyong yora semche gibumen tungye nyong yora. De sa ko tungye wa nyong da ko ra rawa chen chi na. 동양은 영국 말아 풍부를 진 담은데 연대 걸 동양 영국에요 말아 어디 이리서고 단대 동양 영국에 풍부를 때네 풍부가가들 집디만데 소문나야도 샘기 보면서 삼로 투야도 되지도 다들 냠도 고 동양 주어라 어디에도 고 다들 라원전 주여나 근데 영국에요 말아 풍부된 연대도 동양 영국 담은데도 고 담은데 작도 어디에도 고 단대 동양 영국에 ngāngi lētā nyamu bēwāngi ko mīchēni kasi tēgi rā kasi tēgi mara tēndi kiyo mara. Chika ko rāwāngā chi kanda yōngi yōra.
Because the aggregates are under causes and conditions, then the aggregates are constantly changing. So the body changes, the mind changes, and so we say the self is constantly changing, and then when the body feels some kind of pain or sickness, or the mind is unhappy, and we say, I'm sick, or I am unhappy. This is how suffering affects us as persons. If it's, in fact the person was categorically different from the aggregates, then the aggregates would have pain, and the body would have pain, the mind would have pain, painful thoughts, and so forth, and we wouldn't be affected at all. In the same way that it's similar to that we wouldn't change at all if the body and the mind are subject to constant flux of causes and conditions, and then the self also we say is changing. So then if it weren't so, then the self, if the self was categorically different, or what do you say, existed as its own entity and separate from the body and mind, then what happened to the body and mind wouldn't affect the self at all.
This one. That's that way.
And that
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, ne takar sore. Takar saka later. Oh, that under. Gangi chingnam yanda che modil sono tamje rab chomde dedan chebe tuni rab tuni chanju choni de la chaselo. Oh yeah, gandi. Talam so ode. Gandi ya.
Drupala.
Oh.
Drupala left.
Oh. Dadi ngotel chilamne bibi chilamdra. Oh yeah, takar sore. Dandangara zo milu tobana shira. Milu tomne. Chunye tende chikiyordo. Oh, dinashi sanje sumbanamshi mikiwa chupa kiwa chutumne. Kiwa chimanamsuya sadami milu bang jene ko toba chekuyo samgura. Oh, te toba chene. Ene ngesongi tungele toba samayimba. Ene koye tungele toba chekin sam. Oh, koye tungele toba cha. Tenya ranchibu koye tungele toba chekin samayimba. Simjen tamje kowe tungele tawa che tumgenge sanje je ko manje tawa chagi yesam te chedo ene sanje je ko ma ngado lami ko ma topje ge kyu tarwa topje ge kyu sanje je ko ma topje ge kyu te solya teba che te tanda she ba che she ni chinu ki nyamso langi te chedo chenye ge yesam be kuno setamne sembar shose.
So in the beginning here, we have to set our motivation. So think how now I have attained a human life. So in order to attain a sequence of human lives, how I will engage in avoiding the 10 non-virtuous deeds according to the Buddha's instructions, and attain the high state of a human or a deity. Then that's not being satisfied with that. In order to liberate myself completely from all so you want to have that as a continual sequence of human lives, and then not being satisfied with just having rebirth and cyclic existence as a human or a deity, but wanting complete freedom from any rebirth into cyclic existence and liberation. I want to attain liberation, and then liberation for myself is not enough. I want to. What do you say? I want to, or I aspire to attain the high state of a completely perfect Buddha, a person who has the ability to help all beings to be free of their suffering. And so then with those goals in mind, then I will listen to these teachings and study them, reflect upon them, and then put them into practice.
This one? Oh, yeah. Then the dog of a lesson, that is a build sasson. That did it. No, yeah. Sholoka to what did it. Then you were sent it timber, Tana to Temba said in Gira. This one.
No, they.
You were sent it timber to the Tana to Temba. Temba Sanjum Tende, and a core Jukdo Gira, Langdor net tembe, Semeki Burese, Milua Song Chongeko, Tubamenge, or Tiburese, and a shandy timber to Teleshendo. Tayo la soba temba kanga and it's a mekibu mares tembatana res shigwa. Oh, niba shangi tembatana to tembanese. Yeah, teach you love him.
In the previous verse, we had this observation that the Buddha is a perfectly right being. The teachers of the other non-Buddhist philosophies are not perfectly right beings. So then now we're proceeding to this next verse, 281, which is where the topic is let's see, showing that others' teachers are not authentic.
This one? Oh, yeah. The Kangen Jikden did Tonka, right? Then he shall lumber ni sigdwa. Oh, Chirube Dumba Kange sigdwa, Kange, Chirube Dumba Kange. Kange Jikden did Tonka se. Dumba Kange, New Jigin Jikden di sigora. Jikden digi. Kunde Ragwe Sejan, Tongar Kawa se. Kange Jikden di Tonga. O Chirube Mudigbe Dumba Kange Jikden di Nöda Jukin Jikden di Kantresi Chongre Sena. Ti Kudan Drebu Ragbat Tesulaya, Trudeyo Resigora. O Tesu Kanga de Jikdengi, Takbe Chepa Pushore, Tiki Chever Sara, Tu Takbaki Chever Sara, Tu Chen Takbaki Chever Sara, Chiso Takban Demendusi Shore, Pembure, Tiki any Kanga Chior Sara, to the Shagora, Mado, Tome Maruba, Tangzin Kunelane, Siti Shagio Mara, Oti Indu, Koane Jikden, the Chuji Semjenti, Country Chunguyoba, Ti Kudan Drebu Rapatile. Mungi ore esigara, deshingi omare serchira. Oh, Kange Jikden di Tonga, tene Shenla Lumba Nisigdwa. Oh, Tonga wa tene Trawe ne, ene Shindu Trawe Medaba, Dameba, Tongba Nisanda Tezulada, to Teleka Hakuk Mare Sigora. Oh, Dinga Zungunation, Nugu ko Nugu, ne sa chu lu chu Desulitani Kigiora. Otilia and Chebabu Kigiora says, Chebabu man, a cotudan Kinsona Kigre, Masone, Kiguisam Kigmarate. So Koti Korangi Rawachenike, Kiva Chetubi Omara, Swine. Attended the Ravala Trubio Desiora. Oh, Lumbani in Bese, Kansa, Kangdase, Kangda. Did let you lamna second time when you turn that you lamna?
No,
they come at yeah.
The verse reads, "Those who find it hard to see this world are ignorant of others. Those who follow them will be misled for a very long time." So those who find it hard to see this world are ignorant of others. In the commentary, it says, non-Buddhist teachers who have difficulty in discerning even the way coarse cause and effect operate in relation to physical the physical environment and inhabitants of this world. So when it's saying here, hard to see this world, it's saying it's hard for them to see the way of coarse cause and effect, that they are looking at cause, trying to explaining the how the physical environment and the beings within it arise, and so they come up with these ideas of permanent time, a non-associated compositional factor called the principle that is made up of matter and creates everything and is permanent, and they have then a variety of different explanations. Like, for instance, when a sprout needs water and fertile soil and warmth and so forth. A seed needs that, and then a sprout forms. So in dependence upon those causes coming together, then the sprout will grow. But they don't see it that way. They have to say that it won't grow unless the will of a divine creator is involved. So they have, what this indicates is that they have trouble explaining even coarse cause and effect. So if they have trouble with that, then how are they going to? Then it finishes here. Then are ignorant regarding other subtle matters. Subtle matters here is they can't explain what do you say, impermanence and suffering and see that that the ignorance of what do you say, misapprehending a truly existent self is the basis for all our afflictions and so forth. They can't distinguish that.
Oh yeah, that's the nibenita. Kangda teche rodeda shindo yuri luba guru setera. Kansa kangda sigora. That tembatana te chesunroa ke kansa teta sigora. Pangjal hangi danse chenroa shindo yuri luba. Pangjal hangi danse do nga rangwa do chupan zimba, rangwa ne chupan zimba sigora. Ene kunda dume siruza o nga takji rangwa chingi ta yore. Ene nangi ta da chi ta ni yore sero. Ene nangi ta ya ta chunjun shibichi yore sero tinde sheki yora. Tezun zimba di kunda sigora. O kunda dume shawan do gyurbe ese. Kanda teje rode da shindo yore. O te tangzin kunda da lengi ki chodakbe kunda da ane rangshingi yodenge nganzin lengi ki suwanashi ane yore sam kelenge te dasigora. Kunda tume shawado gyurbe shindo yorin lubar gyurbe ase. Tarwa tobala ya te yorin bu ane rangi rang luban gyurgure ese gyora. Kare sene ko tarbe kwa kichi gyui tsawa dezo ane yakbujan zingi yora. Tesna ta leson deba namje logbe temba pane ese. Tene shengi temba teta temba tarnare yangdakwa mahares tarbe lam temba la yangdakwa mahares gora. Yangdakwa temba liya teshi kuibar chawo se. Temba sanje chumden deta buliya tene yangdakwa lam tarbe lam yangdakwa tengere tila teshi kuibar chawo re songkudwa. Deso.
the next two verses, those who follow them will be misled for a very long time. So people who follow these, not inauthentic teachers, then will this come under the influence of innate and intellectually formed attitudes, which must be given up. Here the innate means that our instinctual holding to or grasping at a self, and both of persons and phenomena. And then intellectually formed attitudes are these various, teachings that they've learned from these inauthentic teachers, such as the idea of a principle or permanent time or divine creator. These various intellectually formed attitudes, they have to be given up, but they can't give them up, and they will be misled and therefore they will be misled for a very long time. Means that they'll be led towards they'll be going in a direction that won't lead them to liberation, and so they won't be able to achieve liberation for a very long time. And so the commentator then says, those interested in their own good should leave false teachers. So if they really want to attain liberation, then they should leave false teachers. They should trust and value the true one, the Buddha's teachings.
Yeah, that didn't care. Niba said what Niba nearly turned over the young Asidwa. Oh, young Asidwa. Tombanilla Thabkhe to St. Carres, Shendati, to set to Tombanilla Thabkhe to St. Carres. Tombani Tobala, Cake Chipping, Nimi, Deconani, Tower, Manyambala, Powder Dembershaw, Deconani Television, but Deconing was Dr. Zenga Shakedwa. Niba Nelu turned, talk out a lot, and Zenga on the Shakedwa. Oh, dinner net out and Zetang Buddha. Tambu Tombanilla Thabkhe Cutilia, Sum Dosigwa. Oh, Mambuchitini, Tombani Suda, round Tibeta, Messidu, Teletrani, oh, the Roland Jupumidu some Giordo. Oh, did you send the Caresse? Tombanilla Thabkhe Cusen Sum Shakedwa. Tarban Doja, Kaji Mudici, the Chesun Druve Cusen. Tombanilla Thabkhe Kansang Wilson. Chivanam Sitandil Tanzan Sum Shakedwa. Sumbinan at Tambu the Shagiorda. Tombanilla Thabkhe Cusen Sumbina Tambude. Oh, Tambukares not Tarban Doja, Kaji Mudici, the Chesun Druve Cusen Carres Gora. Tarban Dogi or Tarban Dogiana, and a Tarbato Begu, and then Yamo, Tarbe Good Yamo, Tungegi, Koe Good Yamori, Yamogi Jude, Tanzingi Chigore, Tanzingi Chidu, and it down round the Meba. Togwati Chesun Dogore, the membership, and a Tarban Doja, Ta Meba Tumbe Chesun Mendro, Ta Yuba, Tumbe Chesun Druve, Cusen Carres Gora. Tarban Doja, Kaji Mudici, Chesun Druve, Ta Yuba Tumbe Mudiki, Tumbe Chesun Druve, Cusen Carresana, Cusen Nisgora, Cusen Shakedwa. Chi Tarban Doba, Teda Mudici, Chesun Droshena. Tombani di Chu Nyambala Jigbichers. Oh, Tombani di Chu Nyambalia, Keji Kinjip Medabare, and the Koan Jignet Samatamje, Dunga Ranshinchare, and the Chutamje Rawini Tribe Tomba Resid, Cozola Papki Mare, Jigiora. Oh, some tea of women do some Giora. Oh, dig any teachers Tombani children Jugio Mares. Dici Lamatam.
Now we're proceeding to a different, a second topic in in this chapter, and it's called Difficulty of Understanding the Meaning of the Fundamental Mode of Existence. That means emptiness. Then that's divided into 5 parts. Why emptiness is feared, faults of impeding others' understanding of emptiness, taking care not to lapse from from the view of suchness, stages leading towards suchness, recognizing suchness. Then these will come along over the course of the next few verses. Then, but now we're on the topic of the first one there, why emptiness is feared, and then this has 3 parts, and why some, although seeking liberation, follow the forders, and recognizing a person who fears emptiness. Well, we'll get to the other topics with the next 2 verses. But here, this verse is then saying that basically, if you want to attain liberation, then what's tying us into cyclic existence is the afflictions, and the afflictions are based upon this grasping of the self. So, but those who follow in the other non-Buddhist teachings, then they take a look at the Buddha's teachings on impermanence and how things are in a constant state of flux. They take a look at how Dungawa means that being in cyclic existence brings about suffering. So then they take a look at that, and that they disapprove of that. They're uncomfortable with that and fear it, and the same for selflessness, which is talking about. This also frightens them, that the idea that there is no self. So, or there is no self that exists from its own side. So then they don't follow. So then they take up other teachings. So why did those who seek liberation follow the forders, the non-Buddhist philosophers, is the question. And it says here, because they are afraid to listen to teachings on impermanence, suffering, and emptiness.
그래서 오야 다들 고집 남네 오메죠. 다 산게 좀 된데 야갈은 잠불는 페로와. 펩드산트도 야갈이 하더니 모두 배추 망부 다살아 개바 망부 요라. 어디 미간가 그 직dengi cheba bo yoba. ene ta takba yimba chibu rawa yimba. ene ngobuto zo kechi jiki mare. kechi na. ene java che to mare gyudan rebi namsha yogu mare. Tende tawa shukchim bo yora. Odi ene ta yo mare sede. Da tene bet konzo shigi yora ta yo mare se kar se kare. Dagji rawa chengi ta su di ma do ta yo mare konzo. Samlu nalia. Dagji rawa chengi ta meba sona jiki yora. Rawa nga ta meba. Ene midagwa she. Tene midagwa kechi jibe midagwa do lo so tu gyo mare. Midagwa dunga wa de lo so tu gyo mare kanga dunga wa re se. Ene tene kanga misawa se te lo so gyo mare. Karesne rigma to zo misawa ingire. Litos kanga dade misawa re changma mare konzo. Manzo barman tamsito so ne changma re. Bemeg litos pe changma re. 미상화 말에 시기와라. 대주 강가데 나라스야네 이 교화께 베시리 삼루다해잖아. 신자시시 말에 송기와라. 대주데 로로스여기 말하고. 대 상계 좀 된데데 아니 체바 마와래 시기와라. 잠불이 송계 제바본 에시기도 다 메시기도 Geshe Samakachi Marija, Gansu Barman Samari Tombukanga Mizan, Kasu, Haledashin, the Kavi Homare, Chever Mawa Sigore. Oh, Tayena Chema, Tanti Atisha.
If we reflect back on what was happening when the Buddha came into when the Buddha visited this world in India, that in India there were a lot of different philosophies, and so a Buddha came. When the Buddha came, then people had a very set idea about things. They were, what do you say? They had a strong attachment, we can say, or a strong investment, or however you want to think of it, in very many different philosophies. But basically, they were saying that the self is permanent, unitary, and independent, and so they had a strong idea about the self, and then in terms of the environment, then they said it couldn't just constantly be changing. There has to be something constant there, and so they had this idea of permanence, and then they also had this idea of cleanliness, I guess you'd have to say, that the cleanliness, that the purity that the Brahmin caste is. It might be true that the lower castes are impure, but the Brahmin caste and we men and our women are all pure. We're all, what do you say, clean, pure. So then when the Buddha came with this idea that there is no such self, then it only, when the people didn't like and that things were constantly changing, they thought, well, how could things constantly be changing? That totally disrupts the idea of cause and effect, and cause and effect could never work in that kind of a scheme. So then they labeled the Buddha as a nihilist. He said that they only had this one idea of a self. So then when he said that self didn't exist, then for them he was a nihilist. Wow.
Oh yeah, that's Zambuli Tambu Shadu Kandishagi or Sarah. To train Tapagas or Sarah. Oh, then to train Tapahaya, to Tapasado. Then they talk much go to you Tambu the Tapach. Cousin Limba. The mother title, you and took one member and do with some Giora. Mangazujan Medabachako, Medaba, Kitchen, Yuachi, Bersiora. Oh, did Tambu two such cookies some Bidua. We did the code talk by Kelly Giora. Oh, Tezukanga and Mabasundi, Nijibaki Giora. Oh, Tindi, Gasoda. Sanjaki Sontua. Tuzitabi Chishiko and Sulat and Yakor Minibese. Tuzina Shinki Chuyabuching and Shingi Yamsula. Dana Shandal Dana Hako Midu. Mashana Kado some Shubat or Chumasun Shubara. What in it Sangbagi, Shusha Sangbagi, Chusunronas. Dandabatu Yevi Chutil, turn your cigarettes, turn your ass. Young dog remember your ass. Inako Zambuling Mindila. Zambuling Minalia. Kashe wombo medo neshi medo pema kashe chu ola kachigre kashe chu kalia yon kachigre medo oti neshi zambuling milia ombo tilbo ayo ha ku medo wombo dringa ye, wombo shindu nambo ya ye, sungro na, ane, masungba ye na, ane, kiawa mangbo chili ya, nepa yongore, shin tongge mangbo kiawa ngashi yongore, teso li ya, ane, nepa yongore se, sungro na shi ra, o teni sanje chu songpa ra tong, sa ko lola, te lai labachi mara nga ranzu thoma meba ne, sanje sungye dokjo dili komde yo ra, muti pa se wote nga ranzu chik pare, takta asem nala te egu mare, o ti chila.
Also, the non-Buddhist philosophers had come up with an explanation of how things arise, how the universe had formed based upon permanent particles, and coming up with the idea of permanent time, and so then they couldn't see how you could have what do you say, endless or beginningless regression of cause and effect. They needed some starting point that was permanent, and from that everything arose, and so they had this kind of view. So these kinds of views existed and very strongly, and when the Buddha attained enlightenment, and it said that he stayed for a certain period of time without teaching because he couldn't see that his teachings, the Dharma, would be able to what do you say, reach the people of the world. So then Brahma and Indra and the gods came down and said, well, you have to teach, because they came to the Buddha and said, you have to teach. You can't leave people in this condition. They will stay like this for many aeons, and there's many different people that some will get it and some won't, and it's just like there's many different flowers. Some form under the water, some form on the water, some form above the water. There's many different flowers. So they urged him to teach, but we can understand this, and not just that it's hard to reach people who are firmly and set in the ideas of these non-Buddhist philosophers. We're also like that, in that we have ideas that we have become accustomed to since beginningless time, and to when we run into these teachings of the Buddha, then it is it's a real challenge. It's very hard for us to overcome these views that we're so accustomed to.
뭐야, 나도 나고 교 딱바지게 대부 맨라 개토고 말해 삼겨라 낭바쳤네. 교 딱바에는 대부 맨라 아니 대부 카시에 까브리 메기 같은데 연구 말해서 와라. 교 메다 바꿔 그래서. 교 메다 보면서 그 유로체네는 대부 맨라 교단께 메다 올때 연구 와라. 까브리 메기 같은 연구 와라. 교 딱바지게 대부 기계네 딱바리 시켜게 연구를 삼겨라. teaching them.
But a permanent cause can't give rise to, from the Buddhist viewpoint, a permanent cause can't give rise to a variety of effects. Also, a permanent cause couldn't sometimes give rise to effects and sometimes not give rise to effects. So the cause has to be impermanent, and then once you have an impermanent cause, then a variety of effects can come into existence, and sometimes effects can arise and sometimes not.
Yeah, that ko kasore. Konzo samne tyo samgora. Keji kin jiusona. Tene jachi sama tugu mare samgora. Drebu keya da tende yungu mare samchiki yorda. Mo inde ina ngara zo chana ko keji masede gyurdu yora, gyun de yora. Gyun joshebe, gyun de. Ko keji maina gyurgu yora, gyujingi chigi chigora ina kochi keji maye gyun machebe chi de yora. Drebu ke tugu yora. Ko keji chiki tene kage mene chi게 매나 아니 드브 계속 말와 lem바로 코케지 치케레 나 요마르 케게 요마르 사르요 코케지 이네 코 두스케 추이체도 요라 균투이체도 코 자와 제토고 요라 케지 마게 자와 제토고 그래서 요라 가서 미다 바이나 코 교란도 요레 자와 제토고 그래 강게체도 다 딱바이나 아니 자와 제토 야르 요마르 투르 요마르 니마카레네 텔테고라 다 미다 바레스 미다 바이자 코 규진 교르도 요레 규진 야르치네 야르도 요레 가라즈 치치네 코 강가 교르도 요라 미담부 콘도 사바치나 규진 제버선자 코 콘도 뇨르다 서바 요라 미야르도 요구라 자 계지긴 교르친 게 될이야 자지 강가 룽그레세 지바케 코 요마레 규 되게 하래서 this samgura.
From the non-Buddhist perspective, they feel that if things are changing from one moment to the next, then how could anything work? Nothing could actions and activity could never happen. What they're missing is that it's not the case that in each moment something's produced and completely disappears. There's this idea of continuity or continuum that causes and effects give rise, causes and conditions give rise to effects in a continuum. So when you have a continuum, then everything can be explained as an unfolding of causes and conditions in a continuum from one moment to the next. There's not any discontinuity, I guess we would say. They're not discontinued, and not discontinued. From one moment to the next, there's a continuum, and whereas if you had permanence, then permanence, if the cause was permanent, then it would always be giving rise to the same effect, without, eternally, it would be eternally doing that.
Oh yeah, I didn't know what this was. That wrong in it, da. Takji rawa chingi taas nemedo ta rawa chimena o tene ko jibeki ge wardo o da ngara zu nangba chebe yena ta mida ba rawa ene ta rawa mai ba tyoshi shenla tyoshi rewa rawa o ti sonja ko kanga chetubi yore takba yene chetubi ke yo mar tambu karina ta de war da de dan gyurju ta ke yo mar gyudan kengyo ke gyurju ta yo marwa o mida ba sonja ko gyudan kengyo ge 다데 담보 코아바이나 고 야르드에다 도르드에다 강가 용구라 어디인데고 라와메나 라와이나 딱바치 용구라 시한라 뜨신 데와 요마라 그다음 견라 뜨신 데기 요래 다시데 차실라 뜨신 데기 요래 데인데 고 요르드에 용구라 자실 강가 토구 요래 라와에 다메나 뜨줍기 다이나 내가 강가 체토구리 야가다 강가 야르야르도 토구래 라마에 다시니 야르도야 개요 말이 꼭 당부가리네 대대하고 마도지 그런 주한도야 말아 어째서 그 라마에 다디 매는 짓고 말해 라마에 다디 매버지 뚜두기 다디 요나 야가래 라마에 다이는 짓바래 다 딱바리스다가 대르면 제게요 말해 코아바이나 코아 동행요 대주르마도 개체해요 말아 그 딱바라 뭐 땡지 대버리 와서 그 주한도 줘라 나라서 가리네고 담도 semjena sangye gyurgyore kanga gyurgyore semgyewan gyurgyore teta nyamdo semgyedu ta gyurgyore tene phungbo gyurgyore yarndre yore sangye gyuse sheke she yora o dilla tendure
of course, then once there's change, once there's cause and effect, I'm just remembering that things can improve, things can get worse. That of course is understandable when you have cause and effect in a continuum. But if for instance, the self, they have this idea that the non-Buddhist idea is of a permanent unitary and independent self. If the self was like that, then the problem that incurs is that there would be no improvement of the self. That if the self was permanent, then and unchanging, then it would stay just the way it is when when it exists. It would just exist in the same way all the time. So that then if the self is a person in samsara, then the person would always be in samsara. So then there are these various. So that's the. So when you have a permanent and unitary and what do you say, independent self, then it has that kind of a problem from the Buddhist perspective. Whereas if you don't, if you have one that's subject to change and is this constant unfolding of a what do you say, the basis of designation and the designated object constantly going through the process of change, then there's a way to improve, there is a way to get better and improve.
Oh yeah, that do the dang the lotion. Oh yeah, nyambala jigbeshir cherwa. Ta nyangen debar rangdro kang tene shindu jaga che se de da. Sholuka timbo de wa.
Oh yeah, now we're on. They no.
Tene.
Then they
Didar tambunyi dinda. Didar kewe shenye ji songa tanga sigdwa. Kewe shenye ji chesu songa sigdwa chue tengenge. Ene ngobu tembar zimbe tima torne sigdwa. Ngobu tembar chuban zimbe tima torne se. Ngobu rangundi chuban zimbe tima torne sigdwa. Tene tima torne ngobo tembar chuban zimbe tima torne nyangelen debara rangi te chongje don roa kanyemba teda serwa. Tene ngobo tembar zimbe tima torne teme torne nyangelen deba de tunge tamjele tewe ene chongje tarwe chongje don roa kanyemba teda ni sigora. Shindu jagawa che de sigdwa. Dire nyangen deba rangro kan tene shindu jaga che sedera. Tongbani tobe shirabla soba tende kombale tene sigdwa. Tangbo tongbani tembe kewe shinyi che susun. Ene ngobo tembar zimbe tinzinji tima torne tongbani komne tima torne nyangelen deba rangi tene te tarwe chongje don roa kanyemba teda ni shindu jagawa che ba chere esera. Kare esena. Dendegdo tambu woma de labga tegji lab.
No, so damba de.
Tegji lab na shol siga tambu ni tandade.
No. This is why the translated doesn't divide it into. I mean, if English and Tibetan don't follow one another exactly, but English and Tibetan don't follow each other exactly. So but I'll read the English here for the verse. We're in verse 282. The unwise take no delight in letting their mind follow a guide. Who has done that which is most difficult, attain nirvana. So really the commentary then, follows the order of the Tibetan. So it's treating this idea of the difficulty of attaining nirvana. So to read the commentary, it goes as follows: to be taken care of by a spiritual friend, a teacher, that means, and go to the city of nirvana. Having rid oneself of the stains of conceiving things as truly existent is very difficult. Grasping at persons and things as existing, as truly existing, as grasping at composite things as truly existing.
This one. Dan you chikan niba diktan darida. Drembe leshini tambani mayi yindu troma hisedira. O chakawan zeba tuji chimbu nga vesidwa. O tene tongba nila soba tezo. O tene temba da shenya. Sanje chumde de tene cheba paru de chimba chula soba kese chanju sebe cheba chakawan zeba. Ene simje tamje liya tonghe de trendu ki tuji chimbu nga ve. Drembele shindo detabi sanje chumdende ane tuchenam koa dange songi tungelen drembar zebe sanje chumdende te chi shindo se te che so se ora le shindo se te che so doge se ora drembele shin tambani mai yindo to mai se do o tongge do wa kanyemba deda shindo chakawa chede ndindu so Jakawan zeba tuji chembu ngawen drembe le shindo kibu tamba mayimba dremba de chi shindo yin roa mayin de se sanje chumden de che sundu ne meda ba da tunge ba da to dame takji rawa chenji dame ba tembala soba tele ya sem kabu yo mare se to yo mar sem kabu yo mare se ora de sonza sanje chumden de che su roa la ko meba yo mare se ora yindu to mayin de se karesne takji rawa chenji ta ke tongba rangwene trube ta ke tongba la soba o tezul ya ko traba ji ge ore se ora mayin yindu to mayin se de o ya de la.
So then we continue with the next sentence. Though one with great compassion who did what was difficult to do has come to guide them. Here, talking about the Buddha was able to enter into all the very difficult practices of the six perfections in order to bring them to their final perfection. These deeds are very difficult, yet he was able to complete them and become achieve the final goal. But then unwise people here means those who adhere to these ideas of a permanent unitary and independent self and so forth, when they hear that kind of self doesn't exist, and also when they hear that the self doesn't exist from its own side, when they hear these kinds of teachings, they take no delight in letting their minds follow this guide. That it doesn't please them at all, because they fear emptiness, that they fear the lack of this kind of self.
Yes, sir. Oh yeah, that did it. Taniba 동반이 le trakbe kansa ngwe songwa sikwa tongni le trakbe kansa de ngwe songwa kansa kari susu kande chitagre ese trakba jiwe kansa ngwe songwa.
So then recognizing a person who fears emptiness is the next topic for verse 283.
Oh yeah. 동반이 le trakbe kansa kari sene kanshi trakba gyurshe na sierwa. Oh, ne maton trakba mesomde thona namgu tendo gyur tena ngebar chungse chik shela trakba chobar cha sigdo tire ta tambu kar sigdo sene maton trakba se mesomde se kyanda yonde kaya maton e kansa deso ane palan zela soba pachu chonggen da lobcho che menge teso sigara ane zela soba lenjar nyaya trakba mesum de sigora maton trakba mesum de se ke de ti tongba ni da meda ba sheba de yaga da do ke hamago ke sigora ya hamago na ko karshek do hamago na traye ke yo mara ko jatam ba shena ke trag mare sere hamago ke so deza ke yo kan ya ke da yende kan ya hamago ke ti sheba de le ke kar do yende kar do ke hamago ke chine teso trag mare sera ke yo kan ya maton wa balance pena lobso che me pachu chonggen da ralu chonggen da jagali ne ko mira pachu chonggen ralu chonggen raji te shagra lobso che yo mara pu baba pachu so ralu so te pu je kan ga tende she che te de do so ko lobso si o mara ke ha ko mara kar she ne 동반이 먹어도 동반이 레스나 게 하고 뭐 되네 게 시기 말해서 거라 바나젤라 소바 렌자르 녀야세 동반이 배 자자만 부 사자만 부 녀나 고짜야 게요 말을 가야 게요 말해서 되네 맞아 니 렌자르 녀야 작바 매좀 되세 아니 겨요 가야 마통에 셔세 근데 연대 가야 그 하고 말해서 동반이 셔나 미다버셔는 거 마통 작바 매좀 되세 되다 Tichilabshana?
So who is afraid is the question, and the answer is when it is not seen, fear does not begin. When seen, it stops completely. Thus one can say with certainty, those who know a little are afraid. So if we read the commentary on that, then it starts with this people like cowherds, I guess they call it cowherders.
That's Guy's book.
Oh yeah, right, okay.
Magdalene's book, what is it called?
The cowherders, I don't know, something. Anyway, people like cowherds who see neither virtue nor faults in it. So the example here is of somebody who's totally uneducated. In India, there are people like this who are just spend their whole time herding goats around. The goat herders. They know to. They're just always tending to the goats, the birth of the young goats, and then bringing them up and so forth. They have no education. So then people like that, if you explain to them, if you try to explain to them emptiness, it wouldn't they wouldn't be able to distinguish anything about it at all. They wouldn't know what's a good in that context, what would be good and what would be what would be genuine and what would be false. So they wouldn't be able to distinguish this. So then the commentary goes on and said they'd see neither virtues nor faults in it. They can hear about emptiness 100 times. You could just explain it to them over and over and over again without beginning to feel afraid. They couldn't distinguish anything about it. So because they do not regard it as either beneficial or harmful.
Don't do that. 다 통나 남구 된도 요새 되다 시간이 버들다 당부 동반일이야 퇴바체 되니 대된다 삼루다 대 양내 양도 꼼네 림베 되니 동반이 무슨도 통하다 저스여라 네 뒤남바군도 동반이게 셰바텔이야 작반도 주래 지베기 말에 선거도 지베기 단진다 자와래 고 다든 zemanga rawan zimbe lodma shukchung mebde royora jeza ko trapachik mare sugdo thona namgun tem do gyurs trapan do trapachik mare sugdo
The next line says, when seen, it stops completely. Here then, the commentary is as follows. When one perceives emptiness directly through a gradual process of hearing or studying and thinking and reflecting and meditating, these through this process of and gradually then fear stops completely. And gradually one reaches a point where fear stops completely because one is free from the conceptions of a self, which are the cause of fear. When you have direct realization of emptiness, then you're completely free of conceptions of or grasping at a self, or conceptions of a self that exists from its own side. Then that's, you've totally undermined the causes of fear.
no tadiko dongbani tanda se na shirba samlung ne ta ne trabaji yore samlung za chus ne trabaji gra hando ko ne trabaji nyeng yora ma chi ha ma go na trabaji ke yomara o di indi zanga zo 퇴바체 야보지 퇴 삼루다 수수 삼루다 뒤자 당고네 다음에 배네 당고 trabaji yore 남경 아주 다 생하사 라와 예 삼되게 다 민도스 여라 지지도 콜로 마디데 용요라 당가라저데 텐데라 말에 다음에 버스도 지 인데 여레 삼겨라 가리네치 인데 여레 삼마도 소소 오네 여 있는 면에서 매는 지금 민도 삼사케요 말에 매 숨고 여레 때 콘주케 지지레 다음에 버스고 다 동반이세 버스 게시하게 민도 그게요 말아 오네 삼 당게 있는 잡아지기라 당부들 잡아지기라 잡아지 혼자서 매서 말에 tension rever jo tam samo so gudwa de rawa de yo mare de phumbu ngala tension ne jawa che tumge lega che tumge gewa de ba kang sa tumge de du nyong tumge de yo re sam tende sam gura tene ya tong ba sam gura sa ko sam lu tan de jigba che ya de te yung go de tension rever jo tam samo se yo re tension rever jo wala ta yo re ta yo na ta tension rever jo ni na ta ga lega kang che tumge ya kang tharwa tamje chimba tuktukure sambe bobata nyingdo ya kige wara
네.
this samrutang ora
네.
yeah
So it's true that one can be fearful when contemplating, become afraid when contemplating emptiness. It's not true for us. We just sort of say, they say things are selfless or empty. It must be something like that. It must be true. We're not really, afraid to hear those words. But then, for somebody who's really thinking about it and who's really, studying and reflecting and meditating on it, then it's. You have this feeling that when you're contemplating emptiness, that self completely doesn't. That self doesn't. When you have that feeling of that self completely doesn't exist, then you have to switch to the idea switch to the teaching of dependent arising. You contemplate dependent arising that things can function as dependent arisings, And so it's possible for us to overcome the afflictions and to attain, and we will be able to attain liberation and omniscience. And so then it's possible then to overcome that fear by contemplating dependent arising.
This one. Yeah, yeah, but then ngebar ta dira tona namgun tendo gyurche tena ngebar chungse chi shela takba chöber cha sigdo tena takba kenge kansa de karir tigresne tena ngebar tongba nye gyurte chungse chi shebe so o tongba rangun tube tongba su tele sigdo sam lole ya char thumge tele ate ko takba tigre sera o ti mena san namgun ko ti yoban singi yosan ko takba tigora o dine kare chungse chi shebe kansa la takba jungwari chöbar chao se tena ngebar chungse chi shela takba chöbar cha se this one oh ti o matlab
So the last two lines of the verse then read it, thus one can say with certainty, those who know a little are afraid. So it's that thus one can say in the commentary, it says thus one can say with certainty that fear arises in people who have only a little knowledge of emptiness. The little knowledge of emptiness means you have some understanding of emptiness, and it is.
This one. Oh yeah. Oh, pesha do ta pe. Pernase langbo nyeba la kyamba na se. Oh, langji de nyamba na tende nyeba le ya kyamba na se gwara. Michi ko tele ya shönjen rogo yo seso na se gwara. Le gwala ba menji shen se ko langbo chele shönjen nam gyu gyu chen roge chang de mangbu chang de de ko shigi mare. Oh, 당에 텐데 체크 나다 메야 삼기라. 대식 말에 쳐라. 신도 몽방 민지 되세. 란지 쉬네 코 박사 잡을 때 지그리 삼게 함하고 그 거에 식 말에 뒤간 로그레스 노선 러시아. 돈도 유스면 거다 그러지. 그렇지. 제식 말에 쳐라. 오, 대가라서 뒤내셔도 동반이 먹고 동반이 또 가르치는 시작입니다. 네든지 라고 임베레삼 든지 시기와 임베레삼 산제 든지 송버레 전주 선바서 든지 공부와 임베레삼 나할게 된다게 하말이야. 든지 라고 임베레 야야. 나라서 든지 서도와. 되는 데가서 되네. tena langbo nyeba la kyamba na leba laba minji shin sera shindu mongba nga minji la sera kya chungse sheba jigu a da te nyanga yuda sam tele sheni chi chene yugri tabgri sam chi phasa shu kyagri sam to za ha kongge de ko shiri se ya
so then it's like the following analogy. A well-trained person is not afraid to mount a mad elephant. So you have a totally crazy elephant. If somebody's really well-trained and they know exactly how to handle an elephant, they'll with great confidence, they'll just be able to jump on the back of the elephant and you know, be able to keep riding the elephant. But so a well-trained person is not afraid to mount a mad elephant, nor is an extremely stupid person. Then an extremely stupid person is really somebody who has, you know, they're just sort of looking at it and say, oh, well, it's fine to get up on that elephant, and you know, so it throws me off, big deal, you know, I'll get up again, and so they don't have, so that's kind of like the way we approach it, you know. It's saying that that's the kind of, like the way we approach emptiness. We just, oh, you know, it says the bodhisattvas are afraid when they're meditating on emptiness, but you know, so I'll just go ahead and do it, and we just, you know, it sounds like it would be very helpful, and we just, you know, go right into it. But anyway, yet someone who knows a little about the dangers and benefits involved feels frightened. So, certainly somebody who has, some kind of an idea, about what to expect when this is more like us when we see a mad elephant, we're not about to like jump onto it, and because we know that it can be very problematic.
Oh yeah. We're
not exactly sure which one of these three we are. If you're not afraid, then you're probably like a stupid person.
Tinte mevere samra chigme to tinte samra to ta mevere o ta yoma yocho nga de ta mevere samde ne to sam chi yungra nga nam git ne je tinte mesig do kan ne samra tinte ge me de ta ke yoma ha ko ge ne mana ha ko so
It's sort of like we're more able to sort of keep it external to ourselves. When they say selflessness, we don't really relate it to our own, that we're totally, negating ourselves. We're just sort of thinking, keeping it, less on a personal level. Oh yeah, that makes sense that the self doesn't exist, and so we're really, not bringing it into, the self. As as we internally experience it.
Kangbetene sante marite lugi chashe kanga ta mare samsande seura entene semtene ta mare choa dene ta mare dushida tende samlu ta de energy o e kongbare chaunde so de mebe na oreje chaung gora tende jigba ke yora jigba ke sna o de tenjin de bar jonde samta ora ina pumbula la tenjin de ta ante yore sam chawa che tumge de yore sam che ya tende sam ko do
We have to examine what is the imputed object self, and we have to search for that, and looking from the crown of our head to the bottom of our, to the the sole of our feet. We're searching for the self, and when we come up that self completely cannot be found and does not exist, then in fact it does give rise to fear, and we're afraid that time. So then we have to turn our minds to dependent arising, and understanding that the self arises in dependence upon the aggregates, and when we do like that, then that fear subsides.
Oh yeah. No, that did yeah. Subject logara. That's some bad chibanam. Tunila truck bag you say do. T-shirt do. Somebody read off the Dhamma subject. Given
Oh, somebody.
Chibanam Tombanila truck bag you send carriage and carriage drug or a cigar.
So we're on the third of these three categories under why emptiness is feared, and it's why childish people fear emptiness. It's verse 284.
Oh yeah, this one.
Great.
Tongba nyela trakbe jusen Geshe na magom becherse. Chiba nam dene sosi kyo to tongba nyela tongmar trakbe jusen kares ne te dele ya komba nam gyune ko kumji meza tigre segdo.
The question arises then, why do they fear emptiness? And it's because of a lack of familiarity. They haven't meditated on it and become familiar with it, and know over a period of time that they haven't become used to the idea. Wow.
Chinam ngebar kona ne sholka kubaredwa. Chiba nam ngebar kona ne jugji chola komba de ese. Teda komba meba ye dogji chola jigbar gyoru sigdwa. Chiba nam se ngebar kona ne se chinam ngeba kona ne sigdwa. Ngebar do kona ne khwar jugbar chebe chu tangzin henge da kunda la komba de ese. De chiba ngaran sutabu de ene khwar jugbar chebe kyu tangzin henge ro tangzin henge nga sambe tusen samba la medu ba lol henge da ro teni ai tusen sam do da de yogo de tagba yogo rangu ne yogo sam tusen sam ne samlo ta ye to zule tangzin kunda se gyora ya ta ge chiruba to zo ta du su mang bu do wa chirube ta de ne te su ne shi tu de wang ko ta de ba tele tangzin kunda she gyora tangzin henge da kundala komba deese chinam ngebar konane jukchi chola komba deese khwar jukbar chebe cho de tangzi kunda da teni chiruba shebe tangzi kunda da lo lenge semchen kangala yodenge nga sambe nga rangune chuban sembe lenge tezu lo kombe wange sigara jukchi chola kombe wange chiba deda ngar komba meba ye ngar kumji menge kewa thongma meba ne nga sam nga rangune chuban zimbala komde yore nga re ta meba komba yo mare tende koale dogje ge chu tongba nyelen jigbar gyurwe tamba membe chu logba pangbar chao so te soza ko tende tamba membe tangzi lenge da kundala soba o te zo pangye ge tabla chongure ser chin sardo
The verse reads, 284 says, childish beings are certainly only familiar with that which involves them. Because of unfamiliarity, they fear that which extricates them. Childish beings are certainly only familiar with innate and intellectually formed conceptions of a self. Here, innate is just we all have this instinctual feeling of I and that perceiving an I that exists from its own side, and then the intellectually formed conceptions of self is the teachings of the non-Buddhist teachings of regarding the self as permanent and so forth, and what do you say, unitary, and just any other non-Buddhist explanations of how the self exists, then these innate and intellectually formed conceptions of self involve them in cyclic existence. Then, since such childish beings have no previous familiarity with a teaching that extricates one from the cycle of birth and death, they fear emptiness. So there's no form of, they haven't gotten used to teachings that about emptiness that then free them from the cycle of birth and death. So then they fear emptiness. Therefore, one should give up doctrines that are wrong and unwholesome, that don't teach the idea of the ideas of how to get free of cyclic existence. Nice.
This I. Oh yeah. That did it down ya. Niba tongba ni tokba la gek chebe ni mi sig do. Oh, ti sheg do. Tongba ni tokba le ko parche chinge yora. Oh, te so le ni ba chimbo yongure se. Ti sheg do.
So then the next section is the faults of
tongba ni tokba la gek chene ko parche chinge yora do. Oh, te so le ani ni ba chimbo yongure, ti ba chimbo yongure se ti sheg do.
Okay. So then the faults that impede understanding of emptiness, it translated here, the faults of impeding others' understanding of emptiness.
Oh yeah.
Did you say that again, Joshua?
It seems to be like more like the faults, but she's probably translated according to the meaning. There's the faults that impede others from understand that impedes one from understanding emptiness.
This I.
Yeah. Impedes or obstructs one, hinders one from understanding emptiness. No.
This one. Tena tishin shikba la cheba soshin sigdo. Tishin shikba sanje chum den dege. Ani keba mangbo sunam da shigi sosa tar sangke simjeng ki dondo tar sangke. Ani tandan zambilin li pemne. Ani chö sung bare ludu kawa che chö sung bare wa. O de kadin dilen soshin seri chirwa. O cheba sosa kadin chimbu cheba tele. Dilen jen de ba singir chire. Jikba chimbu pangbar döbe tambe chö de nödo gyurbala tembar chawos ore tena tishin shikbage o sanje keba mangbo simjeng tendo sosa tribaja sangke tene zambilin le pene ene zawanying chichimbe chö tembar je o tende zeba de katin chimbure samne ene roa koa tele ya koa en jikba chimbu tele pangu ye roa jikba chimbu pangbar döbe ase koa medabada tungeji rangshin che sanje sumba namshin shene jikba chimbu ane koa pangbar döbe kansa tele tambe chöge nödo gyurbala tembar chawo chö tensa te tere ese gyora. Oh. Nörungu tüche tele tembar chawo res. Ta te chö tembar parche chena ane tikpa chimbu yorse one yungura.
Oh.
This one.
Det kanske sangye la drin soa gör va yang jipa chambo yang gör be.
Mare sangye le sangye le tin soshin chero. Ne koala ya sangye sumba na chi koala ya jikba chimbu ne pangban de ba desi wara.
Bang döba.
Pang de wara. Sangye ge chö sung ne ko dunge ji rangshin chere meda dunge wa rangshin chere sumbarwa. Oh, de sumba ka tin chimbu re ngondo lame ko ban topche ge tap sung sha. Ko le tendo tare ge tap sung sha ka tin chimbu re sam. Ane ko ya de ran rawa meba ruwa ri tu de kewa thongma meba ne danda mao ba na tu ste te le tare ge tene kore de pe jikba chimbu re sam ko telen jigne si yora. Koe dungele jikshi chane ese de. Jikba chimbu di pa pangu do sam debe kansa tezula ya ane koa le tarwe tab tongba niti tengi yore ti nyoto kirwa re sungu yora. This way.
Indicate I might have to change the translation in this case then. Emptiness should be taught to those who, because they feel grateful to the Tathagata, want to,
Where are you, Joshua? I'm so lost.
oh, yeah, no, we're on the next verse, which is
25?
verse 10, which means 35, what is it, 85? The faults,
The faults that impede, obstruct, hinders one from understanding emptiness. Okay?
yeah, the faults that obstruct one from understanding emptiness. And so
25, right?
here
Someone who is shrouded in complete ignorance?
huh? No, where'd you get that? I don't know.
284.
We're doing 285.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If someone who is shrouded in complete, that's 285, complete ignorance and indeed suchness.
Oh wait. Oh yeah, 285. Sorry. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. No, I keep on going backwards here.
Backwards.
Yeah. No, I'm at the beginning of that, before reading the verse. Okay.
Okay.
There's a commentary that says, emptiness should be taught. Okay. To those who, because they feel grateful to the Tathagata, and the Buddha, before he attained enlightenment, spent 3 immeasurable aeons accumulating merit, and then and then finally attained, and then attained, what do you say, attained enlightenment, and then was reborn into our world, and underwent great hardship for 6 years, and manifested highest enlightenment for the sake of all living beings, and it did all of this for our sake. And then so if you have a feeling, having heard this what do you say, biography of the Buddha, then you feel a sense of gratitude towards the Tathagata and towards the Buddha. And then you have also some fear of cyclic existence, and you want to then you want to, out of this fear, you want to what do you say, abandon or overcome, abandon cyclic existence. Then that is the kind of person that should be taught how to, that's a suitable vessel, that's a suitable recipient for the sacred Dharma.
Oh yeah. That is the Karsura. Oh, Kangshi Timu Bashiki Sudwa. Kangshi Timu Bashiki, Tripshin Tini Kekjeba se. Tela Kelin Droya, Mena Tarbakala Yose. Kangshi is Kyo Kangshirwa. Tongbanila Mikuban Bashidu Maseje. O Tongbanyi Tambatelia, Kuba Meba. Kawa Meba Bashidu Maseje Chera. Tesamare Chera. And Timu Bashiki, Tripshin se. And Tayo Bala Soba, Tendegi, Timu Bashiki, Timnes Yora. And Shalia, Shangi, Tombani Timbala Soba, Shandalia, Tradoda, and Senala Soba Wangi, Tekonani Timbada, Nyambada, Semba Sola, Kekjeba, Shandagi, Tombani Tembatelia, Tembat, Tungenda, Nyangenda, O Tezulia, Samlutangi Tezulia, Kekjene. Parchechene te abumare se ta tezulia trado da o tezu chötembala soba tezu chöshema juleso tinde yongu yordo gekcheba tela kelek doas tripshin tel tingi gekcheba se tombani tam tebala soba tinila gekcheba se do parchecheba tela kelek doa ya mena tarba kala yose o teta bu kansa telia kelek doa te se gewa jebali tenen drobe turi lada mi goban la soba tende de tobe deyan top togu ma resi yora digba mambusani gelin drowa turi toba ya mena tarba toba ta kala yu digba shindu chewe cherusa mena tarba kala yu sede dela gelin drowa ya mena tarba kala yu tarba toba la soba tende de kala yu de yon togu ma re ko digba shindu tsepchin busagi yora resi yora
The verse then reads, is someone who is shrouded in complete ignorance and impedes suchness, will not even attain good fortune, what need to mention liberation? The commentary then says, someone who not only has a total disregard for emptiness, but is completely enshrouded in ignorance and impedes teaching, hearing, and thinking about suchness. That means others, impedes others, out of jealousy, meanness, and the like. It's possible that there are people like this that want to obstruct others. Then will not even attain the good fortune of a high rebirth because they've completely cut off the causes of that. This being so, what chance is there of such a person attaining liberation? Because you don't even have to mention liberation, since their karmic actions they have such grave ill deeds that they've created that they won't attain they certainly won't attain a fortunate rebirth. So then why do we even have to mention the idea of liberation? Yeah.
Oh, tene digba chenpo te sungu doa. Oh, gawan dosuna. Mala sokpa tende mangbo seba le se, mi mangbo seba le jan sik doa. Ene tingchun trebe tade pongwa de digba chewe rangi rangla lu meche na nendi la sabar chawo se. Oh, simje mangbo seba le jan, ane tongba ni tenpa tanga tende le kek che ne, ane shen le barche cheba tende yina, digba chenpo te sungu doa. Ane rangi rangla ya lu ba meche na nendi la sabar chawo, soso le ya lu ni digba chenpo saa ni nge son li kecho bale. En dilia tongba ni temba de la meseba mechas sabso chi sungu doa.
So rejecting because denjing joba junga gorla chi yo in a bed.
Not do it. Figure that.
I think I have the wrong page.
More degree, Joshua.
Oh, because Denjun Tribe Tadan Drawa de?
No.
Denjun Tribe Tadan Drawa?
Dene? Bajere?
Nigya Kupchugo Gu.
Chujiba.
Kupchugo Gu. Oh. Nigya.
Mene? Takarjesa.
Didwa.
Ra.
Oh, de Denjun Tribe.
Oh, de. Kilaim batanda. Denjun sera.
Yeah, I got it.
Denjun Tribe Tadan Jawa. Ponga Tibe Denjun Tribe Tadan Denjun Reba ni Joa. Tongba ni se wara. Denjun Tribe Tatam Jadan Jawa Tongba ni jelia. Any pong ne tinde parche chevine. Tibe cheve rang rangla liver machina nendele sabar chaos.
So rejecting dependent, and the last sentence then reads, rejecting dependent arising free from fabricated extremes is a more serious ill deed than killing 100 million people. So one must take care in this matter to avoid deceiving oneself or misleading oneself.
나 되게
No,
돼서 저쪽에서 돼서
no.
야 뭐야 they can do it.
So that's the lesson for this morning,
뭐야
and we'll reconvene this afternoon.